The darkness on the tarmac is absolute, broken only by the blue flames sputtering from the exhaust stacks of 4 Wright Cyclone engines. The machine vibrating on the pure steel planking is a bowing B-17 Flying Fortress. Tail number 412666. To the rest of the 43rd Bomb Group, this airframe is a pariah. It is an aircraft with a reputation so poor that ground crews have threatened to mutiny rather than service it, and pilots have refused to fly it. It sits at the end of the runway, heavy with fuel, bearing the scars of past neglect and the weight of a reputation for being cursed. It is known simply as Old 666. Inside the cockpit, Captain Jay Zeamer Jr. runs through the pre-flight checklist. At 24 years old, Zeamer is an anomaly in the 5th Air Force. He is a pilot without a permanent crew, a man who has spent his free time scavenging the boneyard, the airfield scrap heap, to rebuild this rejected bomber. He is not flying a standard formation mission today. He is flying a solo mapping run into the most heavily defended airspace in the Solomon Islands. Beside him, checking the navigation charts, is 2nd Lieutenant Joseph Sarnoski. Sarnoski is the bombardier, but today his primary role is not to drop explosives. It is to operate the cameras and, more importantly, to man the guns in the nose. The relationship between Zeamer and Sarnoski is the backbone of this crew. They have handpicked the rest of the men on board, gathering a group of misfits and volunteers who were willing to fly a plane that no one else wanted. The mission parameters are clear, but suicidal. General George Kenney, commander of the Allied Air Forces in the Southwest Pacific, needs precise photographic intelligence of the coast of Bougainville. The Marines are preparing for an amphibious invasion, and the cartographers have nothing but blank spots on their maps regarding the reefs and defensive positions near the Empress Augusta Bay. To get the photos, Zeamer must fly straight and level for 22 minutes over Bougainville Airfield, the primary nest of Japanese naval aviation in the sector. Zeamer releases the brakes. The overloaded bomber lumbers forward. Old 666 is heavier than a standard B-17 because Zeamer has fundamentally altered the physics of the aircraft. Frustrated by the B-17's vulnerability to frontal attacks, Zeamer has turned the nose of the plane into a porcupine of heavy weaponry. He has scavenged .50 caliber machine guns from wrecked fighters and installed them himself. A standard B-17E carries 13 machine guns. Old 666 carries 19. Most critically, Zeamer has mounted a fixed .50 caliber machine gun to the side of the cockpit, fired by a trigger on his control column. It allows him to aim the entire four-engine bomber like a fighter plane. He has replaced the single flexible gun in the nose with twin 50s for Sarnoski. They have stripped weight where they can, but the ammunition load is immense. The wheels leave the ground. The bomber claws for altitude, banking toward the Solomon Sea. They are alone. There is no fighter escort. The distance to the target is 600 miles, 745 hours. Approaching Bougainville, the flight is uneventful for 3 hours. The sun rises, illuminating the vast, empty expanse of the Pacific. Inside the fuselage, the crew test fires their weapons. The sharp crack, crack, crack of the Brownings vibrates through the airframe. Sergeant John J. Abel, the tail gunner, scans the horizon. Waist gunners Sergeant William Vaughn and Sergeant George Kendrick check the belts of ammunition feeding their weapons. Top turret gunner Sergeant Herbert Vaughn rotates his glass dome, searching the upper hemisphere. They are entering the sphere of influence of the Imperial Japanese Navy at 25,000 feet. The air is thin and freezing. The crew is on oxygen. Below them, the jungle-covered spine of Bougainville Island comes into view. Zeamer lines up the approach to get the necessary overlapping photographs for the cartographers. The plane must maintain a steady speed and a constant altitude. Any deviation, any jinking to avoid flak or fighters will render the film useless. Zeamer calls over the interphone to Sarnoski. Get ready on the camera. All set, Captain Sarnoski replies. Seconds later, a call comes from the top turret. Fighters. 10 o'clock high. Zeamer looks out the port window. Climbing rapidly from the Japanese airfield at Bougainville are 5 Mitsubishi A6M0s. They are the lead element. Behind them, more specks appear against the blue sky. 12 more fighters are scrambling. 17 enemy aircraft. Against one solitary bomber, standard operating procedure dictates that a lone bomber spotting enemy interceptors while on a reconnaissance. Run should jettison any weight, turn 180 degrees, and dive for the safety of the clouds. Zeamer checks his fuel. He checks the position of the sun. He looks at the target zone below. "We're going in," Zeamer says. He does not turn away. He does not dive. He holds the course. The Japanese pilots, seemingly confused by the audacity of the lone American bomber, take their time forming up. They are accustomed to B-17s fleeing. This one is plodding forward as if they don't exist. The lead flight of Zeros maneuvers to the front of the bomber. They know the B-17's weak spot. The E model has limited forward firepower. The most effective way to kill a flying fortress is a head-on pass. Aiming for the cockpit glass to kill the pilots, Zeamer sees them lining up. He knows exactly what they are doing. He grips the yoke, his thumb hovering over the trigger of his fixed gun. He is about to test a theory he has only practiced on parked wrecks. 0800. Ours they intercept the first 5 Zeros bank and turn in, diving straight at the nose of old 666. The closing speed is over 500 miles per hour. At this velocity, there is no time to think, only to react. Sarnoski in the nose bubble tracks the lead Zero. He is exposed, surrounded by nothing but plexiglass and aluminum. He opens fire with the twin .50s simultaneously. Zeamer pushes the nose of the B-17 down slightly, aiming the entire bomber at the lead fighter. He squeezes the trigger on his yoke. Tracers stream from the cockpit gun. The Japanese pilots are caught off guard. They expected a defenseless nose. Instead, they are flying into a wall of lead. The lead Zero shudders as Sarnoski's rounds tear into its engine block. It flares up and disintegrates, tumbling away in a ball of fire. But the other 4 fighters press the attack. They unleash a torrent of 20mm cannon shells and 7.7mm machine gun fire. The noise is deafening. The sound of metal tearing metal drowns out the engines. A 20mm cannon shell smashes through the plexiglass nose, exploding directly in front of Sarnoski. The blast throws the Bombardier back into the crawlway beneath the cockpit. The nose compartment is instantly filled with shrapnel, wind, and smoke. Another 20mm shell punches through the skin of the cockpit on the pilot's side. It detonates against the rudder pedals. The explosion shreds the bottom of the cockpit. Metal fragments tear into Zeamer's legs. His feet are blown off the rudder pedals. The instrument panel shatters. Hydraulic fluid sprays across the cabin, coating the floor in a slick red mixture of oil and blood. Zeamer's flight suit is tattered. His legs are a mass of raw flesh and broken bone. In the nose, Sarnoski drags himself up. He is mortally wounded. A piece of shrapnel has collapsed his lung. Others have pierced his abdomen. He is bleeding profusely from a deep wound in his neck. By all medical logic, he should be unconscious. Instead, Sarnoski crawls back to the nose guns. The Zeros are swinging around for a second pass. A fresh flight of fighters is diving from the flanks. Zeamer fights to stay conscious. The pain is absolute. He tries to move his feet to control the rudder, but his legs do not respond. He looks down. The rudder pedals are gone and his boots are filled with blood. He grabs the yoke with both hands. The control cables for the elevators and ailerons are still intact. He can keep the plane level. He must keep the plane level. The cameras are still rolling. Ski. Zeamer yells. There is no answer on the interphone, but the vibration of the nose guns resumes. Sarnoski is back in the fight. 0805. Hours the siege, the Japanese fighters realize the bomber is not going down. They swarm old 666 like wasps. They attack from all angles, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, in the top turret. Sergeant Vaughn is spinning wildly, tracking targets. His twin guns hammer away, ejecting hot brass casings that rain down into the cockpit, landing on Zeamer's shattered legs. From the nose, Sarnoski spots two Zeros coming in for a coordinated head-on attack. Despite his failing vision and the blood filling his lungs, he waits. He holds his fire until the fighters are within 300 yards. He unleashes a burst. The first Zero flies directly into the stream of bullets. The canopy shatters, and the plane corkscrews into the sea. The second Zero breaks off, its wingtip smoking. Sarnoski collapses over the guns. He has cleared the way in the cockpit. Zeamer is fighting a war on two fronts: the enemy fighters outside and the catastrophic loss of blood inside. He feels the plane lurching. The oxygen system has been hit. Without oxygen at 25,000 feet, the crew will pass out in minutes. Zeamer makes a critical decision. He cannot stay at altitude. He pushes the yoke forward, going down. He croaks into the radio. Old 666 begins a steep dive. The airspeed indicator winds past the red line. The airframe groans under the stress. Zeamer is diving not just to find breathable air, but to force the Japanese fighters to engage them at a lower altitude where the B-17's lack of maneuverability is less of a disadvantage. And where the Zeros cannot attack from below, the dive is violent. The rapid change in pressure causes ears to pop and sinuses to flare. The wind rushing through the shattered nose. Cone screams like a siren. They level off at 2,000 feet above the ocean. The mapping run is over. They have the photos. Now they just have to survive. The Zeros follow them down. The fight has now lasted 15 minutes, an eternity in aerial combat. Usually, a dogfight is decided in seconds. This is becoming a brawl. The Japanese pilots are relentless. They sense the bomber is crippled. They line up on the tail. Sergeant Abel, in the rear, fires short, controlled bursts. He is conserving ammunition. He knows they are hundreds of miles from home. A 20mm shell strikes the waist of the bomber. It severs the control cables to the rudder. The plane shudders. Zeamer feels the pedals go completely slack. He has no steering. He can only bank the wings to turn. Zeamer looks at his instrument panel. It is destroyed. He has no airspeed indicator, no compass, no engine gauges. He is flying by feel and by the position of the sun. He glances at the co-pilot's seat. Lieutenant Wilder, a volunteer for this mission, is unharmed but frantically trying to staunch the bleeding from Zeamer's legs with flight scarves and first aid kits. "Leave it," Zeamer orders, his voice slurring. "Help ski." Wilder crawls down into the nose. He finds Sarnoski slumped over his guns, his body riddled with shrapnel. The Bombardier is still conscious, still trying to point out incoming fighters. But he is fading fast. 8:20 hours, the gauntlet, the battle drags on. 20 minutes. 25 minutes. The Zeros, frustrated by the B-17's refusal to die, begin taking risks. They come in close, trying to rake the fuselage with machine gun fire to kill the crew inside. This is where Zeamer's modifications pay off. The extra waist guns, the radio room gun, and the twin tail guns create a defensive box that the Japanese have never encountered. Every time a Zero tries to close to effective range, they are met with a wall of .50 caliber fire. Sergeant Sway in the tail and Sergeant Kendrick in the waist coordinate their fire. They shout clocks positions over the interphone. "Bandit, 5 o'clock low. Got him." Braking left. Another Zero smokes and falls away, trailing oil. That makes 3 confirmed kills, with several others damaged. But the B-17 is being eaten alive. The hydraulic system is gone, meaning the brakes and flaps will not work. The electrical system is failing. The wings are sieves, punctured by hundreds of bullet holes. The engines are coughing. Zeamer is drifting in and out of consciousness. The pain in his legs has turned into a dull, cold numbness. This is a sign of shock. He knows he is dying. He forces his eyes to focus on the horizon. He has to get the nose up. If he passes out, the plane will dive into the waves. He wedges his arms against the control column, locking his elbows. If he dies, he wants his rigor mortis to hold the plane level in the nose. Joseph Sarnoski pulls himself up one last time. A Zero is making a pass from the front quarter. Sarnoski grabs the handles of the twin .50s. He doesn't have the strength to aim properly. But he fires a deflection shot to spook the pilot. The Zero breaks off. Sarnoski looks back at the cockpit, toward his captain and friend. He slides to the floor of the Bombardier's compartment. Moments later, he dies.